Condition 3 of Table 110.26a within the National Electrical Code, or NEC, addresses specific working clearance requirements for electrical equipment. This condition was introduced in the 2011 edition of the NEC. Before 2011, only Condition 2 existed, providing allowances for reduced working clearances, particularly in existing buildings. The addition of Condition 3 in the 2011 NEC brought about a significant change by introducing larger working clearance requirements for electrical equipment situated in dedicated electrical rooms or vaults within existing buildings. This modification was implemented with the aim of enhancing safety standards by providing more ample space for workers to effectively operate and maintain electrical equipment. Prior to the 2011 NEC, Condition 2 allowed for reduced working clearances in existing buildings, but with the introduction of Condition 3, the Code sought to establish a higher level of safety for installations in dedicated electrical spaces. The rationale behind this change was to acknowledge the potential hazards associated with working on electrical equipment and to ensure that workers have sufficient space to perform their tasks safely and efficiently. A larger working clearances mandated by Condition 3 provide workers with increased maneuverability, reducing the risk of accidental contact with energized parts and facilitating easier access for maintenance and repairs. This enhanced safety is particularly crucial in dedicated electrical rooms or vaults, where the concentration of electrical equipment is often high and the potential for electrical hazards is elevated. However, the NEC also recognized the practical challenges that some existing buildings might face in fully complying with Condition 3. In certain situations, physical constraints such as limited space or structural limitations may make it difficult or even impossible to meet the larger working clearance requirements. Therefore, the NEC included provisions that allow for the continued use of reduced working clearances, as specified in Condition 2 of Table 110.26a in existing buildings under specific circumstances. These allowances are intended to provide flexibility while still maintaining a reasonable level of safety. To be eligible for the reduced working clearances permitted under Condition 2, several criteria must be met. Firstly, the building in question must have been constructed before the adoption of the 2011 NEC. This requirement ensures that the allowances are primarily intended for existing buildings that were designed and built under earlier code editions. Secondly, the electrical equipment must be located in a dedicated electrical room or vault. This restriction limits the application of reduced clearances to spaces that are specifically designed and designated for electrical equipment, where access can be controlled and hazards can be better managed. Thirdly, the electrical equipment must not be accessible to unqualified persons. This requirement emphasizes the importance of preventing unauthorized access to electrical equipment, ensuring that only trained and qualified individuals are permitted to work on or near the equipment. Fourthly, the electrical equipment must not be located in a damp or wet location. This condition aims to avoid situations where moisture could compromise the installation of electrical equipment or create a risk of electrical shock. Damp or wet environments increase the potential for corrosion and other forms of damage, making it essential to maintain adequate clearances and protect electrical equipment from exposure to moisture. Fifthly, the electrical equipment must not be located in a hazardous, classified location. Hazardous locations, such as those containing flammable gases or combustible dust, pose unique challenges and require specialized equipment and installation practices. In such environments, the reduced working clearances allowed under Condition 2 may not provide an adequate level of safety. If all of these conditions are satisfied, the electrical equipment may be installed with the reduced working clearances specified in Condition 2 of Table 110.26a. It is important to note that these allowances are not automatic and must be carefully evaluated to ensure that the installation complies with all other applicable requirements of the NEC and any local codes or regulations. Electrical inspectors have the authority to determine whether the reduced clearances are acceptable based on the specific circumstances of the installation. In summary, Condition 3 of Table 110.26 represents a significant advancement in electrical safety by mandating larger working clearances for electrical equipment in dedicated electrical rooms or vaults within existing buildings. However, the NEC also recognizes the practical limitations of some existing buildings and provides allowances for reduced working clearances under specific conditions. These allowances are intended to strike a balance between safety and feasibility, ensuring that electrical installations are both safe and practical. When working with electrical equipment, it is essential to consult the latest edition of the NEC and any applicable local codes or regulations to ensure compliance with all requirements. It is also important to seek the advice of a qualified electrical professional if you have any questions or concerns about the proper installation or maintenance of electrical equipment. The NEC provides specific requirements for working clearances around electrical equipment to ensure the safety of personnel who may be working on or near the equipment. These requirements are outlined in Section 110.26 of the NEC, which includes Table 110.26A that specifies the minimum clear distances for working spaces based on voltage and conditions of installation. Condition 1 typically applies when there are exposed energized parts on one side of the working space and grounded parts or grounded surfaces on the other side. Condition 2 generally applies when there are exposed energized parts on one side of the working space and insulated parts or insulated surfaces on the other side. Condition 3 usually applies when there are exposed energized parts on both sides of the working space. The working clearance requirements in the NEC are intended to provide sufficient space for workers to safely operate and maintain electrical equipment. These clearances take into account factors such as the voltage of the equipment, the presence of energized parts, and the potential for electrical shock. The NEC specifies minimum clear distances for working spaces in front of electrical equipment. These distances vary depending on the voltage of the equipment and the conditions of installation. For example, for equipment operating at 150 volts to ground or less, the minimum clear distance is typically 3 feet for Condition 1, 3 feet for Condition 2, and 3 feet for Condition 3. For equipment operating at higher voltages, such as 600 volts, the minimum clear distances are greater. It's crucial to understand that these are minimum requirements, and in some cases, additional clearance may be necessary to ensure worker safety. The NEC also addresses the width and height of working spaces. The width of the working space must be at least 30 inches or the width of the equipment, whichever is greater. The height of the working space must be at least 6 feet 6 inches or the height of the equipment, whichever is greater. These dimensions are intended to provide adequate room for workers to move around and perform their tasks safely. Access to working spaces is also an important consideration. The NEC requires that working spaces be readily accessible and that there be a clear path of egress in case of an emergency. Doors or gates that provide access to working spaces must be at least 24 inches wide and 6 feet 6 inches high. The NEC also addresses the illumination of working spaces. Adequate lighting is essential to ensure that workers can see clearly and avoid potential hazard. The NEC requires that working spaces be illuminated with sufficient light to allow workers to safely perform their tasks. In addition to the specific requirements for working clearances, the NEC also includes general requirements for electrical safety. These requirements cover a wide range of topics, including grounding, overcurrent protection, and personal protective equipment. Grounding is an essential safety measure that helps to prevent electrical shock by providing a path for fault current to flow back to the source. Overcurrent protection devices, such as circuit breakers and fuses, are designed to interrupt the flow of current in the event of an overload or short circuit. Personal protective equipment, such as gloves, safety glasses, and insulated tools, can help to protect workers from electrical hazards. The NEC is a comprehensive set of standards that addresses all aspects of electrical safety. By following the requirements of the NEC, you can help to ensure the safety of yourself and others who may be working on or near electrical equipment. When it comes to existing buildings, the NEC recognizes that it may not always be feasible to fully comply with the latest working clearance requirements. In these cases, the NEC allows for some flexibility, but it also emphasizes the importance of maintaining a reasonable level of safety. As previously discussed, Condition 2 of Table 110.26a provides allowances for reduced working clearances in existing buildings, provided that certain conditions are met. These conditions include the age of the building, the location of the electrical equipment, and the accessibility of the equipment. If these conditions are met, the electrical equipment may be installed with the reduced working clearances specified in Condition 2. However, it's important to note that these allowances are not automatic and must be carefully evaluated to ensure that the installation complies with all other applicable requirements of the NEC and any local codes or regulations. Electrical inspectors have the authority to determine whether the reduced clearances are acceptable based on the specific circumstances of the installation. When working in existing buildings, it's also important to be aware of any potential hazards that may be present. These hazards may include asbestos, lead paint, and other hazardous materials. It's essential to take appropriate precautions to protect yourself from these hazards. In addition to the NEC, there may be other codes and regulations that apply to electrical installations in existing buildings. These codes and regulations may vary depending on the location of the building and the type of work being performed. It's important to be familiar with all applicable codes and regulations before starting any electrical work. Working with electrical equipment can be dangerous, so it's essential to take all necessary precautions to protect yourself and others. Always wear appropriate personal protective equipment, such as gloves and safety glasses. Make sure that the power is turned off before working on any electrical equipment. If you're not sure how to do something safely, ask for help from a qualified electrician. The NEC is a complex and constantly evolving document. It's important to stay up to date on the latest changes to the code. There are many resources available to help you learn more about the NEC, including books, websites, and training courses. By staying informed and following the requirements of the NEC, you can help to ensure the safety of yourself and others who may be working on or near electrical equipment. In addition to the topics covered in this discussion, there are many other aspects of working clearances that are important to understand. These include the requirements for dedicated equipment spaces, the use of barriers and enclosures, and the requirements for working clearances around specific types of equipment, such as switchboards and panel boards. It's important to consult the NEC and other relevant resources for more information on these topics. Working clearances are an essential aspect of electrical safety. By understanding and following the requirements of the NEC, you can help to prevent electrical accidents and injuries. Always prioritize safety when working with electrical equipment, and don't hesitate to ask for help if you're not sure how to do something safely. The NEC provides detailed guidelines for working clearances around electrical equipment. Table 110.26a outlines minimum clear distances based on voltage and conditions. Condition 1 applies with exposed energized parts on one side and grounded parts on the other. Condition 2 is for exposed energized parts on one side and insulated parts on the other. Condition 3 addresses situations with exposed energized parts on both sides. These clearances ensure worker safety during operation and maintenance. Insufficient clearance can lead to accidental contact with energized parts. The NEC also specifies minimum width and height for working spaces. The width must be at least 30 inches or the equipment width, whichever is greater. The height must be at least 6 feet 6 inches or the equipment height, whichever is greater. Adequate access to working spaces is crucial, requiring a clear path of egress. Illumination is also important for visibility and hazard avoidance. Existing buildings may have reduced clearance allowances under Condition 2, provided certain criteria are met. This includes building age, equipment location, and accessibility. However, these allowances are not automatic and require careful evaluation by electrical inspectors. Prior to 2011, the NEC only had Condition 2, and Condition 3 was added in the 2011 NEC. This change introduced stricter clearance requirements for dedicated electrical rooms or vaults. The goal was to enhance safety by providing more space for workers. Existing buildings that meet specific conditions can still utilize the reduced clearances of Condition 2. These conditions include building construction date, equipment location, restricted access to qualified personnel, and no damp or hazardous locations. It's essential to consult the latest NEC edition and local codes for compliance.